Today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, it's a bad day for young pasty white guys, as an old pasty white guy was chosen as Kamala Harris's VP, Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. That means, of course, Kentucky's Democrat Governor Andy Beshear will not at this point be on a national ticket. That doesn't mean he won't be on one into the future. We'll talk about exactly why Kamala Harris did not choose Beshear, and exactly why, of course, all the Kentucky media is, pretty upset about the fact that they won't have their shot at the big time, won't have their shot being on some of the national media. Some of them did get on national media during the search, but they won't end up making it all the way to the top. We'll talk about that. And then also as well, poolpartygate, Louisville Metro Police Department's poolpartygate, the party that has launched all these lawsuits. We're getting more details on that. I'll go over that. Today we'll have all that and more on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Before I dig down into it, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure you leave a 5-star review if you're listening to this on a podcasting platform. If you want to reach out to the show, feel free to email info@theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's info@theandrewshow.com. So Kamala Harris picks Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota as her VP running mate, which honestly, out of all the options, might be one of the worst options. We'll go into why, but she didn't pick Beshear. And of course, everybody in Kentucky on the left, and of course all the media, very, very upset about that, because obviously it was their time to be on that big national stage. They were pushing Beshear almost as hard, if not harder, than everybody else. And that's to be expected. As I said, this was their shot, their opportunity. We saw some Kentucky media people like Austin Horn on the Herald Leader, a few others on CNN, MSNBC, on a few more of those national media platforms. And now that opportunity is gone. They're no longer the expert on Andy Beshear. So why did Kamala Harris, though, pick Governor Walz over her other options? Well, there's a few things. I'll go over her other options, and then I'll get to kind of Beshear. I'll kind of mingle them, right? But first, let's talk about the big thing here. Beshear's not from a swing state. That's a big mark off of him right away. Now, you would say, well, Governor Walz from Minnesota isn't from a swing state either. No, he is not. They're both not from swing states. At least Governor Walz is from a Democrat state. So it kind of helps propel you with your base and, of course, the donors as well. But also, he's more from a swing area. And he's better known. Tim Walz was in the House. Tim Walz has been a more known name just around politics in general. A greater name ID as far as that goes. And he comes from more influence in those swing states of places like Wisconsin and Michigan, which are incredibly important if Kamala Harris wants to win the White House. She needs Wisconsin, she needs Michigan, and he's from that Dairyland, north, don't you know, area. And so he can perhaps help bring that in. Compared to Andy Beshear, you look at the southern swing states and you might have Georgia and North Carolina, which are, at least Georgia especially, is less competitive. It's still competitive. Kamala Harris could still win it, but it's less competitive than Michigan and Wisconsin is. And so if you're saying, hey, look, where can 1 or 2 percentage points actually make a difference? Well, it could be in Michigan, it could be in Wisconsin, could be in Pennsylvania, which goes into why didn't she pick Shapiro? Obviously, Governor Shapiro out of Pennsylvania was in that final mix. And quite frankly, the reason why she didn't pick him is because he's a Jew. And of course, the Democrats hate Jews right now. And so she's not going to pick him and rouse up that base. But speaking of the base that hates the Jews and the Democrats, that goes into also another thing about Governor Walz. Walz is from Minnesota. Minnesota has a large Muslim population. For those of you who don't remember, Ilhan Omar is from Minnesota. That parlays into that area of Michigan that Some people in the Democrat Party are worried about turning out that Muslim Democrat vote in Michigan, in like Dearborn, Michigan, which of course, for those of you unaware, Rashida Tlaib comes out of Michigan, so that kind of carries over as well. So he's coming out of states that have this Muslim Democrat population, and I guarantee you they went into the numbers with that population to see how well did they vote for Walz, how did Walz sit with them, and so they need to keep their base intact because Kamala Harris is already acting like she's already come out with her campaign with more Israel supportive rhetoric, even though her actions are anything but. But if she picks a Jew vice president and is heavily supportive of Israel in her rhetoric, well, that might be too much for the base in Michigan to be able to get out. And that may actually lead to her losing in Michigan. So that's why she didn't go with Shapiro. And Gretchen Whitmer, obviously, is the governor of Michigan. You'd say, why didn't she go with her? I think it was because a two-woman ticket didn't necessarily look good. Now, I think the real first pick for Kamala Harris was Roy Cooper out of North Carolina. That's more of a swing state, but it also can pull in those rural voters. Now, that was a big selling point, too, with Andy Beshear. But Roy Cooper's a little bit different in the sense that he's in an actually competitive state. And so if you can talk to those rural voters in a competitive state, states on the edge like North Carolina, that can bring it over. I think Roy Cooper was her first choice. Roy Cooper, for those of you who don't remember, removed himself from the vice presidential running. I said he seemed like the smartest pick because he would help with the Rust Belt areas like Pennsylvania because he brings in that blue dog Democrat feel, but at the same time, he is actually from a swing state. And you say, well, if we're looking for somebody who messaged to rural voters, wouldn't that be Andy Beshear? No. And here's where the cold, hard facts have really tore down Andy Beshear. And just frankly, I think the Harris vetting team did a good job of getting to the root causes of Andy Beshear because there's a lot of hype from the Democrats around him, like he's going to be the great messiah for rural voters across the country. And it's just frankly false because the success of Andy Beshear has nothing to do with his rhetoric at all. At all. His little nice guy, wholesome matching shtick is not what is bringing in the voters. It's not. It's who his daddy is. And the fact of the matter is nobody else in the country cares that Andy Beshear is the son of Steve Beshear. Nobody cares. They care in Kentucky because remember, this is what's going on across the country. When we look at the rural red voter, a lot of them used to be registered Democrats, and they voted for Democrats in the 80s and the 90s. So keep in mind in Kentucky, when Beshear came into play to run for governor, a lot of the current Republicans already had voted for somebody with the last name Beshear. It was a lot easier for him to vote for. And then you also have, of course, the registered Democrats that vote Republican. And that goes on in a lot of these rural areas as well, where nobody's really gotten around to changing their registration. And so when you think about it, the people who used to be Democrats that recently changed to Republican in rural areas, common, and those who are still registered Democrat but vote Republican, common in these areas, those who fall into that category, if they're not going to and not willing to vote for Andy Beshear, there wasn't going to be another Democrat they would ever vote for. Beshear likely is the last Democrat they will vote for unless they can find somebody else who's the son of somebody's dad they voted for, and now they're voting for the son, of course. What that means for Andy Beshear, it doesn't translate well into the other area. And his pasty white guy wholesome maxing actually doesn't win over rural voters as much as Democrats like to claim that it does. Beshear really doesn't have much going for him when you take a look at the national stage. Now, why did Roy Cooper remove himself from the running? I think it's because Roy Cooper is in a purple state, purple area. He actually does have a potential political future even within his own state, such as running for senator. While Andy Beshear, on the other hand, he has no future in this state. Andy Beshear will not win a senator race if he tries to run for that. Andy Beshear's best hope was to do something nationally, eventually be the vice president or president on somebody's ticket. I could see him being the vice president pick maybe in 4 years, or after running through the primary and doing okay in the primary, if he can do that, after he gets, and I'm sure what he's angling for, is some sort of cabinet position posting within the Harris administration to help raise his national name ID. Because that's the other reason why they wouldn't pick Andy Beshear, is because his national name ID, nobody knows who he is because he's an inconsequential governor. He doesn't do anything that matters because he can't do a whole lot that actually matters. He can say all the nice things he wants to about LGBTQ or whatever and wholesome max and pretend like the good Christian thing to do is to let parents cut off the genitalia of their kids. But at the end of the day, he can't do anything about it. Because he can't, quote unquote, fight back on it, well, therefore, he doesn't get the headlines that some of the other people may get on doing the same things. He can't do it. So that's the other thing. Nationally, they don't know who he is. More people know who Governor Walz is. I knew who Governor Walz is. I remember him from having some of the worst lockdown measures, close to, if not worse than Andy Beshear. Because when I was standing up to the governor's mandates here in Kentucky, and we were basically able to back him into a corner where he was forced to lift the mandates in Kentucky and allow people to go back to eating inside for the winter. Because remember, his reasoning behind why he put in place the mandates over Thanksgiving was because people would be traveling and spreading. Well, that reasoning still would stay in place for Christmas, but the difference was, is that, and also too, he wanted to pretend like, well, it was already, going down, the case count was going down, but on the day he announced he would be reopening, it was the highest case count day of the year at that point. And so, but after we were able to basically politically back him into a corner to reopening here in Kentucky, I went to Minnesota and helped and marched in some, protests and worked with some business owners there, helped a bar keep their alcohol license, and did a few different things in Minnesota. And so I'm familiar with how bad lockdown policies are, which is why the Governor Walz pick is actually, while it maybe was something that Kamala Harris was kind of backed into doing because her actual first pick of Roy Cooper backs out, Walz can bring something to the ticket in Michigan and Wisconsin where she really needs the help at. Beshear really didn't bring anything to the ticket. Shapiro's a Jew, so that's out. So really, Tim Walz was maybe the only one willing to do it that wouldn't upset the base. But actually, it really helps out Republicans because Walz is extremely far to the left. It's just the fact of the matter. He is a far left governor. His lockdown orders are extreme. His rhetoric is extreme. He's really good at the gaslighting that's easy to break. For an example, he was talking about Republicans wanting to ban books, and he said something about banning Animal Farm when that's not like really anything Republicans are trying to ban. They're trying to ban books with like actual pornography in it from being exposed to the kids. But of course, to him, well, whatever I can do to gaslight people into going ahead and voting for us, which at this point, the Kamala Harris Walz ticket, the Harris Walz ticket is truly a gaslight ticket. That's what they're going to have to rely on because they have, if you look at their record, you look at their rhetoric, you look at what they've actually done, what you end up seeing is something who's a lot less desirable than they want you to believe. So for those of you who listened to yesterday's show, I introduced you to poolpartygate. There is a massive thing going on at the Louisville Metro Police Department where sexual harassment lawsuits and mistreatment lawsuits are being filed left and right. And to kind of give you the story of what's happening, to kind of frame this in, it involves a few different characters here. So it involves Major Shannon Louder and her husband, Jeff Louder. It involves Major Kruger, we'll call him Kruger, Major Kruger, and involves another officer, Lauren Carby. So the story loosely, now we'll go into the specifics and what everybody's claiming, But this is just to remind you, like I said, I know we covered part of this yesterday, but I think it's worth noting exactly what both parties are saying happened as the stories have been updated and more facts have come out. So Major Shannon Louder, female, and her husband Jeff Louder. So apparently for years, there has been a rumor that Major Shannon Louder cheated on her husband with another officer. That's the rumor. Not saying it's true, not saying it's false. It's just a rumor. And then the lawsuit, and then Shannon Louder and Jeff Launders were reported to Major Brian Kruger because Shannon Louder and Jeff Louder threw a pool party at their house, an adult pool party. And so what Lauren Carby says happened is she showed up at Major Shannon Louder and Jeff Louder's pool party in August of 2020, and they informed her that they were in an open relationship, and we'll talk about some that Lauren has claimed that happened. So Lauren shows up at this party. Shannon Louder and Jeff Louder make sexual advances to them, tell them they're in an open relationship. On top of this, Shannon Louder is rumored to have had relations with other officers as well within the department. I guess Jeff Louder too as well. Carby gets unwanted advances and then makes a report to Major Kruger saying that Shannon Louder and Jeff Louder had made inappropriate comments and suggestions to her and made sexual advancements on her. And so she reported that to Major Brian Kruger, and now Shannon Louder says, oh, it's all false, that Lauren Carby's making it up, and that Major Brian Kruger actually made inappropriate and sexual harassing comments to Shannon while investigating Shannon for possibly making inappropriate comments at a pool party. And so that's kind of where the story is. And I think it's worth noting what each side is exactly saying, because really, I want you to remember, this is our police department in Louisville, Kentucky, okay? This is what's going on there. This is what has happened because of the leadership. This is what happens when you live in these Democrat cities. They have departments run like, I can't even imagine a company ever being run this way. So let's go over exactly what Carby had to say here. So in her suit, which she filed on June 20th, this is the officer that Shannon Louder and her husband came on to. She's claiming they came on to her. She's the one saying that, bringing up the possible prior affair Shannon Louder had, and the ones making the claims that then led to Shannon Louder being investigated by Kruger. That then when Kruger tried to get promoted, Shannon Louder said that Kruger sexually harassed her while she was being investigated for sexual harassing this other officer, Carby. So this is what Carby says Shannon Louder. This is very complicated. You're going to need like red lines. But anyways, this is what Carby said Shannon Louder did in her lawsuit filed June 20th. She says that Shannon Louder and her husband committed sexual misconduct, alleging the two openly talked about their extramarital relationships, and Shannon Louder told her to come back to the pool party when she tried to leave following her husband's advances. When Carby went back to the Louder home, according to her lawsuit, Jeff Louder was waiting. He led her upstairs where Shannon Louder was sitting on a couch, highly intoxicated and attempting to locate a detective she was seen kissing earlier at the party. Shannon Louder allegedly told Carby that she had her blessing to engage in a relationship with Jeff, according to Carby's lawsuit. When Shannon Louder left the room, Jeff Louder tried to kiss Carby, her suit claims. Carby allegedly pushed him away and left the home. But in the Louder's version of events, Shannon Louder simply spoke to Carby to clear the air and dispel the rumor she was having an affair. But the rumor spread like wildfire through the department, according to now the Louder's lawsuit. Carby's attorney, Sarah Collins, said in a statement that the claims by the Louders are nonsensical. LMPD has a history of covering up misconduct of high-ranking members, including sexual harassment and other misconduct by Major Shannon Louder, Lieutenant Jeff Louder. The Louders' recent efforts to portray themselves as victims are without merit. Also named as a defendant in the Louder lawsuit, so this is now their lawsuit that they're filing against Kruger, is the Command of Department's peer support team. Vance heard about the allegations by Carby during a peer support meeting and encouraged Carby to report the Louders' alleged contact. When she declined, Vance contacted the head of LMPD's internal investigation unit and reported the alleged harassment and misconduct, which prompted an investigation. But in 2023, the River City Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 614 filed a lawsuit against the city after most investigative interviews were completed, arguing that the investigation violated the collective bargaining agreement because the complaint was based upon private information discussed as part of a peer support process. A Jefferson Circuit Court judge in April issued a temporary restraining order halting the investigation. Carby then filed her own complaint, and the investigation then was ongoing. So apparently the department knew about this problem back in 23, earlier than that, but because they did not follow proper procedure of how it was reported, they couldn't do the investigation, and then Carby, who says the Louders came on to her, actually reported. Now, let's look at Carby's claim, some things that I have questions about for Carby, and that is that why was she so she goes to this adult pool party. She apparently shows up. She says she was lied to. She was told it was that the Louders said that it was an open house with about 20 friends, neighbors, and colleagues to celebrate their recent professional accomplishments and the retirement of a colleague. Keep in mind, this is in the summer of 2020 when, supposedly we're all supposed to be locked up with COVID. And so Carby says that she got there under false pretenses. Jeff Louder came on to her, then she went to leave. But then Shannon Louder got her to come back to the home? Like, why would you go back? That's my question. Why would you go back? Now, for Shannon Louder's part, in her lawsuit, she claims that everybody's victimizing her, that she didn't actually have the affair, that this rumor is spreading like wildfire, and claims that pre-Chief Jacqueline, former Chief Erica Shields, heard the rumors about the Louders and allegedly took it upon herself to reprimand Shannon in a March 19, 2021 meeting. Chief Shields advised Shannon that she would not have to deal with the harassment. So basically, to rewind here, so Shannon made a claim in February 2023, and she went directly to Gwen Viroli, and the chief allegedly said she did not want to address Shannon's complaint and informed Shannon that the entire situation frustrated her because it predated her becoming chief of LMPD and should have been addressed by her predecessors, but failed to offer to help or support Shannon. So Shannon Louder, for her part, had said that, this harassment of her, this rumors of extramarital affairs, that Kruger's misbehavior, she did report to the chief, who said, I don't want to deal with this because your predecessors should have dealt with it. Now, in the lawsuit that Shannon Louder claims that at one point she talked to and wrote a letter to the Louisville Metro Police Department leadership, including the former chief, about retaliation and disparate treatment, among numerous other LMPD policy violations. Shannon's letter made it all the way to the office of the mayor, who failed to take any action whatsoever, her lawsuit claims. Former Chief Erica Shields heard the rumors about the Louders and allegedly took it upon herself to reprimand Shannon in a March 19, 2021 meeting. Chief Shields advised Shannon that she would not have to deal with harassment if she were fatter and uglier, the suit alleges. Shields eventually apologized, according to Shannon Louder's suit. So I just want to give in more details because we talked about this pool party gate yesterday, and this is just shaping up to be another. We've had slushy gate, now we have pool party gate. What is going on at the Louisville Metro Police Department? Like, anytime somebody acts up or does anything slightly inappropriate now, we should just keep saying, what is this, the Louisville Metro Police Department? Why are we behaving in this way? Why are we doing these things? But that's exactly the kinds of things that apparently has been going on at the Louisville Metro Police Department, and just points to, once again, the failure of leadership. As I said, I know I talked about this yesterday, but it's worth knowing some of the other details of the lawsuit, because this is a very intricate story, and it's turning out to be a lot of just sexual harassers. And at this point, nearly half the command staff has been accused of somehow sexually harassing somebody. And it's just ridiculous. Well, y'all, that's what we got time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Thank you all so much for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow. Hope you have a great rest of your day.